Okay, well, hi everyone. Thank you very much for watching or listening. Liam Hartree here today with another episode of Presenting Champions. And today I'm truly honored to be joined by Tony Kryptonite Lopez, legendary fighter in MMA, kickboxing, boxing, bare knuckle boxing. This man has done it all. Obviously, former world champion, heavyweight world champion in bare knuckle boxing for BYB Extreme, won multiple MMA titles, been in there with some of the best names. So it's an absolute honor and a privilege to welcome Tony to our show today. Champ, thank you for jumping on. Pleasure to have you here.
Well, pleasure's mine. I love it when I'm asked to do an interview, and because it gets my name out there, gets me out there, people hear me, and so it's like I said, it's my honor.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor for us both then. Let's look at it that way. I followed your career for a long time as well. So, on a personal note, it's a real pleasure. Now, you obviously compete in all different styles. I mean, you're very well known for MMA and bare knuckle, but you've done kickboxing, you've done boxing, you've done a bit of everything. So, all in all, do you know how many fights you've actually had altogether?
Honestly, no. I mean, roughly. I mean, from what I've heard people say and stuff. The last time I heard it was uh, around 120.
120. Wow, yeah, busy man. I mean, I was researching for this and I was finding different records and you're a very, very busy man. So obviously you try different styles of fighting, you don't just stick to one thing. What is your inspiration to test yourself in multiple different styles of combat instead of just staying with, say, MMA or one particular thing, if you get what I mean?
Yeah, no. Well, my whole point, or even starting, when I started in MMA, but my whole point was I wanted to see if my martial arts background was effective. And so I went into MMA because I figured, hey, well, they use everything there. Let's see if what I learned works. If I got in a scenario where or a situation, I mean, where I had to use it, and that's what started. And from MMA, I figured, okay, well, let me go to boxing. Let me go to kickboxing where they just are more specified in certain things, just to see where I stood in that. And that's what kept me going. That's what bare knuckle did for me too. In the end, right now, that's what I'm doing, bare knuckle boxing, because I've never been in a street fight, and that to me was the closest I would be to a street fight, and so the experience of feeling someone actually hit me with no gloves, no protection, just bare knuckles, and just going at it, and same thing, hitting someone else with my bare hands, just to feel, hey, does it hurt? Can I, punch correctly? Can I take a hit? Can I deflect? Can I do everything I got to do? So yeah, that's what keeps me going. Just me trying to learn different styles and seeing if I can compete at a high level and be successful.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've answered that question several times over because you definitely do compete at that high level and you definitely are very, very successful. But when it came to starting out in your career, you mentioned the MMA and everything that being your background. Did you expect at that time to have come as far as you have, because of everything you've accomplished, 120 fights and or plus, and world titles and all of this type of thing? Did you always expect that, or in the beginning, were you just sort of seeing how it went one fight at a time type of thing?
Well, I'll say in the beginning, there was no expectations of anything. Like I said, it was just me seeing if my skills were good enough to just survive on the real world. And but after I believe my first three fights, that's when I realized, yeah, you know what? This seems easier than I thought, and I think I can do really well. So in the beginning, no clue, but after three fights, I realized, you know what? I can do really well in this.
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense. I love the mentality of just, testing yourself and pushing your own limits. It's a real warrior mentality. So massive respect for that. Now, obviously, when I speak to people who've done as much as you have and they've been in as many fights as you have and everything, we have to condense this down for time and everything like that. So I was thinking the best way to do that is to talk about some of your personal favorite fights. And I know this is a big question out of the amount that you've had and everything. But whether it's to do with the opponent, whether it's to do with a location that you fought in, somewhere that fighting took you, or the crowd, it can be all different things. But just to give a mention to a few of your personal favorite highlights and the reason why those ones are your highlights. Are there any that come to mind for that?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is my very first, not my very first, but the first opponent that pushed me, and in this fight, I actually train for the fight. I don't really train for fights or, I just go in there. I'm normally physically fit. I run, I work out, do stuff like that just to maintain. And this guy I was going against, at the time, I think I want to say either 35, 36 years old. He was 21, so he was young. He was in his prime. He was uh, physically fit. I mean, just perfect specimen of a man for fighting. And when we got in the ring, we just went at it. And in the first round, I knocked him down. I thought it was going to be over, so I unloaded. Well, I didn't finish him, and now I'm out of gas. And I mean, he's pushing me to keep. He wouldn't stop, and which was great. It's what I loved about it. He just kept coming, no matter how many times I hit him or what I did. He just kept coming. Yeah, I mean, he took a page out of my book. 'Cause that's what I do. You hit me, I'll still keep coming. And so it just pushed me. And in between rounds, my coach is like, "Hey, you're doing a great job. Just keep doing what you're doing." And in my head, I'm thinking, I can't keep doing this. I'm running out of gas. I'm pretty soon, if he just touches me, I'm going to fall. And for me, it was a title fight. The opponent was Keith Berry. And we're going into the third round. And I'm thinking to myself, I'll be lucky to make it to the fourth, as tired as I was from just hitting him so much. He hit me a couple of times, but I mean, just unloading on him. I was so exhausted that I was looking for a way out. I was like, I mean, I can't finish him. I just don't have enough energy to finish him and stuff. But I'm like, how can I end this fight? And luckily, I was doing enough damage that his corner threw in the towel. And when they did that, I felt such a relief. I was like, oh my God, I never want to feel that again. That's a really memorable fight for me, because like I said, it pushed me. I was in great shape, pushed me, and I mean, it just kept pushing me to my limit and past it.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, what's really cool about that is other fighters will relate to that, in some of these tough fights. But for the fans, that's the side of things they don't see. They see the fight, but they don't see what's going through your mind and everything. So I'm really glad we got to touch on that. An obvious highlight to give a mention to as well is, of course, the BYB Extreme world title. I know we're moving forward in time a bit with this, but basically it'd be cool to get your thoughts on how it felt to be heavyweight champion of the world. Absolutely incredible achievement, more than some fighters will get in their whole career and everything. So how did it actually feel to be a world champion when you were walking around with the belt and everything?
You know what? I'm smiling because I've been asked this question before, and to me, I've gotten so many titles that I've become numb to them. To me, there's just I expect it. When I go to fight for a title, I expect that belt. I mean, it's mine. I just gotta put on a show for a bit of time, and then I get my belt. So when I won that belt, the thing was too is that the opponent, can't even remember his name, but I was so mad at him because he did some things before the fight that, I mean, like I took it really personal. So when I went into that fight, it was more, I wasn't using skills. I was just angry. So the fight was separate from the title to me. When I went there, I was there to beat him up, to punish him, make him hurt for the things he done and said. So I mean, winning the belt at that time, like I said, I expected it, and to me, the reward was being able to beat my opponent up.
Okay, that makes sense. That was the bit you took the most pleasure from. Yeah, I mean, when I was researching this, man, I've seen that you've won a bunch of titles. And again, the same thing with the number of fights that you've had. I could find a lot of them, but I couldn't find a total list. So, same thing what I asked you earlier about the number of fights. Do you know how many titles you got all in all, or Have you lost track of them by now?
You know what? Honestly, I think it was around 70 or so that I just stopped counting. And then I started just looking at, okay, as long as I win, if I have a title on the belt on the line, as long as I win the title, I'm happy. But yeah, the fights, it was no more like, oh man, hey, this is my, 80th fight. This is my 90th fight. It's like it didn't matter. After a point, it was like, okay, you know what? I fight, I win, I lose, I get a belt, I don't get a title. It just got to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. It's still an amazing achievement, though, winning that many titles. I mean, I have to ask, so in your home, you have what? You have like 70 titles. Not to ask anything too personal here about your home, but I'm just saying, with having won that many belts, where do you keep all those? Do you have like a room set out for them or something like that?
Well, see, at first, I had a shelf. They all fit on there. And then after a minute, then it's like, okay, well, let's put some over here. Let's put some over there. And you know what? Let's put some in storage. Let's just, I have, I think, 11 on my wall. A wall just for my fight belts, my inspirational little captions there and stuff like that. But the rest are put away because there's just too many to put on a wall.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That is wild. Massive respect on everything you've achieved there so far, and more to come as well, I'm sure. And we'll get to that shortly. But before we do, obviously, that's touching on the bare knuckle boxing side of things, touching on the MMA side of things, a different type of thing. But who is the most skilled grappler, wrestler, or submission artist in general that you've shared a cage with? Because we mentioned earlier on about one of your toughest fights when you were gassing and everything, and that sounded very much to do with strikes and everything. But in terms of like the submission side of things, who would be a couple of opponents that would stand out for you as being the most skilled guys you've been in there with in that sense?
You know what? I can't really name anybody off because there's no one that's stood out to me that way. It's like with grappling, like Jeremy Horn. He was a good grappler, known for grappling and just being dominant. And I felt like, okay, you know what? This is a good guy. And when I fought him, mind you, I like to test myself. So when I fought him, we went to the ground. I didn't stand up. I didn't trade with him or try, just knock him out. I figured, okay, he says he's good on the ground. Let me test him. We went to the ground. We were up, we were down, but most of the time we were on the ground in his element, and I dominated him. And I thought to myself, well, if he's supposed to be this good on the ground, how come it's not hard for me? And I'm not saying that I'm great on the ground. I'm very rusty on the ground, but it made me feel like, okay, well, I beat him. It wasn't that bad, so grounding ain't too much of an issue. My thing is that, yeah, when like I said, when I go to fight, I look for the opponent that's going to push me and teach me something. And in this case, right now, like looking at grappling, Jeremy Horn was at the top for me. Like everybody knew about him, talked about him, all this stuff, and there was nothing there. So I was like, okay. And then stand up, same thing. Everybody's was pretty much the same, well rounded. And there wasn't not one fighter that was like, oh my god, this guy just dominated me. He did this, he did that. I mean, there's a couple of fights where I myself wasn't in the fight, so it looked bad on my part. I remember one fight with Nick Rosborough. He was like a 50-50 fighter. He was good at standing, but if someone dominated him, he crumbled. In this fight, he ended up dominating me. Just he beat me with a punch, and I could have took him to the ground, ended it quickly, but I didn't want to. I was trying to figure out why is he hitting me before I hit him? Why is he kicking me? And so yeah, I spent 3 rounds getting pulverized. I was cut open, bleeding all over the place, and two people told me. Well, the first person was the ref, John McCarthy. He came over and just said, "Hey, if you need a way out, just let me know. And I looked at him like confused. I was like, no, I'm good. I'm fine. He said, okay. And then right after that, my coach walked in and said, hey, if you don't change what you're doing, I'm gonna stop the fight. I'm throwing in the towel. And I was like, what are you talking about? To me, like I said, I was fine. But since I was watching myself getting beat up, pulverized, bloodied, all that stuff, I was like, there's nothing wrong. It's just blood coming out. So then I had to change it up. And then, the first three rounds were his, the next two were mine because I just took him to the ground. And when I took him to the ground, I wasn't doing no submissions. I was trying to hit him. I was trying to pay him back for what he did to me and stuff. But so in that case right there, like I said, he dominated me. I realized that, okay, well, why was my whole thing was, why was I slow? Why could he beat me? It's because I slacked off on my training. He was more polished than I was at that time, and my cardio wasn't where it needed to be. So that's why, that's what I took out of the fight. You know, yeah, he was a 50-50 fighter, wasn't that good, but he was good at what he did, which was stand up. And that's what I faced him. That's what he was beating me at. And so since I wasn't where I needed to be, yeah, he dominated me. But yeah, so I mean, there's different reasons why when like I said with Nick that I said he was better than me at stand up, and that day he was phenomenal. I mean, I couldn't say, oh no, I beat him out of this, that, whatever. No, he totally whooped my ass. Everybody saw it and stuff, and he got my title for it too. So I mean, like I said, there's different reasons, but it all comes back to me, where I'm at physically, mentally, emotionally, all that stuff. So, but yeah, those would be the two that I'd say with the grappling, German Horn, and with the stand up, Nick Rosborough, just because of the way the results went and what happened during the fight.
Absolutely, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, man. And I love the insight into, like I said before, the things that people don't see, your mindset and your training and what's going on behind the scenes as well. Very, very cool. So I also want to touch on something here that I think is something a little cool, maybe for up and coming fighters who are just starting out, is as well as obviously the money and testing yourself and the titles and finding out what you're made of, which seems to be like a mainstay of your motivation.
Oh, sorry.
Obviously, you get to travel around a lot as well through fighting and see places that you may not see otherwise, if you just had like a regular job or whatever. So, like I say, for people who are starting out, getting into the game and everything, what would you say are some of the favorite places you've been to that you wouldn't have necessarily had the chance to go to unless it was from fighting, if that makes sense?
Well, I'd just say the world, because like I said, I've been all over, and then it's all thanks to fighting. I mean, I love when I went to Australia. I actually, one of my sponsors was out there and from there, and he took me sightseeing. When I first landed, which was great. And then after the fight, I ran into an American man that moved out there, and he took me fishing through the canals, something that I would have never done on my own, or figured out how to, like how can I do this in the time little time frame I'm here. So I mean, that was awesome. When I went to Korea, just the culture, the lifestyle, it was totally different. And I mean, like I said, they're Sweden, the people. I can't believe how friendly the people in Sweden are. If I walk down the street here in California, or anywhere here in the States, if I say hi to a young lady, they don't say nothing. They walk away. They cross the street. They go away from me. And when I was in Sweden, I seen this young girl jogging. She had her earphones on, and as she's coming close to me, I just say, "Hi, how you doing?" She stops, pulls her earphones on. She goes, "Excuse me, what was that?" And like it just blew my mind. I was like, why would she stop? What? And she's scared of me, just my look, my appearance, But no, the people over there are educated, they're friendly, they're kind. I mean, it's a different experience. So I mean, it's like every place around the world exposed me to something new, and that's why I can't really say this place or that, but it's like every country has something I took from it. So yeah, I mean, if you get into fighting, that's one benefit of it. You get to travel and see the world.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's something that I like to touch on with people because it's not mentioned often enough, and it's one of those benefits that you can't put a price on that. I mean, that type of life experience that you have that you wouldn't have otherwise, and everything. is very cool. And on the subject of up and coming fighters, before we come back to you in a moment, I'd like to get one or two pieces of advice from you that you would give to any sort of up and coming or starting out fighters who are listening to this, because obviously you've been around and you've done it all, man, you know. So you're in a great position to, I know it's a little different for everybody, depending on what they want to do, you know, which style and how they want to train, and there are some differences. But if there were like one or two things you said, right, you have to have that to succeed and to do well in sports as tough as this, what would be one or two things you'd like to share on that count, please?
Well, one thing that I pride myself on is think outside the box. You know, if everybody is doing this, like attacking this way and defending this way, it's textbook. Everybody does that. They know, hey, if they punch with the right, you block with this, you do this, you do, and you move here and you counter. You got to switch it up. Everybody always say, when I do my jujitsu, they say it's ebonic. And the whole thing was because I know you, if I grab your arm and go try and do an arm bar, everybody knows what to do, how to defend, and what it feels like when it's starting, all that. Well, if I change my approach and do it differently, you don't see it coming. You don't know what it is because I'm not moving the right way, the way everybody's taught to defend something or to get a submission. So the same thing goes with stand up. The punches, the blocks, everything. You just gotta switch it a little bit. You switch it up a little bit, and the angle changes, the deflect, everything about it. The way you block, the defend, everything. It just that's the key thing is think outside the box. Everybody's doing it this way. Change it up just enough to confuse them.
I like that, man. I like that's a good answer. That's a different answer, you know, than I'm used to hearing as well. So there's some rock solid advice there for people. Yeah, don't be too rigid, you know, don't do it the set way. I like that. Very cool. Okay. So another couple of things then, and then in a minute we'll talk about your future plans as well. But before we do, obviously with the amount of guys that you fought and the amount of elite guys, do you keep in touch with any of them? Do you ever see any of them at like other events or any opponents? Because one of the things, you know, I've heard a lot doing these types of interviews is people fight each other, and in certain cases, not in a lot of cases, but in some cases, after sharing a tough fight, they actually sort of bond over that and, you know, become friends or whatever. So are there any people that you really keep in touch with, or do you just sort of stay in your lane and leave that in the past type of thing?
Yeah, no, I mean you're right about you fight somebody if you got a little bit of bad blood or just some things were said after the fight. You guys, we become friends. Well, not friends, but we're not beefing no more. It's good. We can go afterward, have a beer and just talk, relax, have a good time. Um, there's really no one I keep in contact through the fights just because I don't do that. I since I'm not your typical fighter that trains or just goes to a gym and has a circle of friends that are involved in that. There's less of I guess things to associate with each other. My thing is just about, hey, I fight to make money. I fight because I love to do it, and that's about it. I don't. Even though it's a career and a lifestyle, I'm barely now trying to get into the training part. Getting healthy and doing what fighters normally do to prepare for fights. So it's yeah, I don't know. I don't. There's really no one from the fights that I talk to. I've had friends before they start fighting, as they were getting ready to up and comers, and then they go and start fighting, and then we just stop talking because they get busy with all the stuff they have to do for the fights, which is train, eat right, sleep, all that stuff. That I mean, there's so much that people do to get ready for fights that it's hard to have a life outside of it. And I'm not sitting there like, hey, remember me? Talk to me. And then I'm doing my own thing too over here. So we're all just busy that I don't see the time to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. 100%. I was just curious more from the point of view of like, if you're fighting on an event, then maybe there's like an old opponent of yours who's on the same show or something, you bump into each other. But yeah, it makes sense how you stay in your respective lanes and everything like that. But it's cool because, when I do these, I try and look at, I mean, you said about outside the box, I try and think of things to talk to people about that people are not as used to hearing, and things like that, which is, my fun side of it. So that was something that people may not know. But obviously, we need to talk about your future plans as well, because you've achieved so much that we've talked about. I mean, we've barely scratched the surface, but we have got some highlights in there as well. But in terms of like where you'd like to go from here, I'm guessing that bare knuckle boxing is the primary focus now, but correct me if I'm wrong. It'd be good to get your thoughts on like if you're going to do more MMA or just what your future plans are in general, basically.
Well, you know, I'm enjoying bare knuckle boxing right now because, like I said, it's new, and I mean it's thriving. So I'm gonna be with bare knuckle for as long as I can, in the sense of just being able to be active, and that's basically it. If I can stay active with them, I know I'm there. Well, what's caused me to go to other organizations, different fight styles, is the lack of opponents. When I start running out of people, and yeah, with as many fights as I've had, you get slim pickings. So if I start running through everybody, and it's hard to give me a fight, or you can't, well then I'm gonna just be like, okay, well, you know what, I'm gonna try this. Just keep busy, keep myself moving. So I don't know. I'm thinking about doing things outside of what is called fighting. But it's still where it's physical. And but like I said, that's way down the line still. Just thinking about other things I could do if I have to stop fighting, or maybe I want to pursue something else. But yeah, that's what keeps me moving around, is just when I start having trouble getting fights because there's no more opponents.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's amazing in itself. I mean, you've fought everybody, and obviously you've been doing this a lot of years. Something to touch on with that, is a question. It's not really a question. I think it's that polite to ask somebody, but I'm going to ask you anyway for the purposes of an achievement. Because how old are you then? The fact that you're still competing at the highest level now, if you don't mind me asking, and I'm asking this from an inspirational point of view, not to be nosy or anything, but I mean, you've been competing for a lot of years, and you're still at the high level now, especially in something bare knuckle boxing. How old are you now, still to be competing at the highest level?
49.
Wow. Okay, yeah. I mean, that is incredible. I mean, the reason is, like I say, not nothing personal to you. It's just the fact that I think it's so cool that age is just a number, and in a funny type of way, you show that because you're probably fighting guys half your age or whatever, and I think that's amazing. I got a lot of respect for that, and I never knew that. I mean, I watch your fights and everything, and I was looking at it, and I was thinking, this guy, he's been around a while. He's been in with a lot of the best guys, and 49, that is something special, if you don't mind me saying. So that is a special achievement in itself, do you know? Because think about it, how many people say, and it's a mental thing, but how many people say, oh, I'm such and such age, it's too late for me now, I'm over the hill now, whatever. People talk about themselves like that. And obviously it's not real, it's just up here, So in a funny type of way, I think you actually show that to people, but age is just a number, Do you get what I mean with this? So
Oh, definitely. I get that. I mean, I understand that. And what my thing is too is I hear a lot of fighters when they retire, you know, 1 or 2 years go by, and then they're like, man, I wish I could do that again. I really miss it. And I think to myself, well, why'd you stop? You know, besides injuries and just life, I mean, I know that stops a lot, but same thing, injuries, they can be prevented. I mean, because most of the damage that happens to a fighter comes in the training camp. When you're getting ready for a fight, you're sparring someone, grappling someone, you're lifting weights, everything you're doing, to get ready for the fight. You know, a lot of fighters get hurt. They cancel fight. That's why I had the opportunity to fight so much, because I was a fill-in. Like they had a main event going on, and one of the fighters got hurt, a week out before the fight. And, well, who's going to replace a main event top contender fight last minute with the 1 week? Everybody cares too much about the records. They're like, no, I need time to get ready for that fight. They call me, and I'm like, yeah, I'll take the fight. I don't need no training. I'm ready to go now. And then that's one of the ways I accumulated so many fights. Because people fall out left and right, and when they need somebody, my thing is call me. I'll be there. That's the same thing that happened. That's how I got into BYB. Is that they had their main event, and they were going for, what is it? The number one ranked guy was fighting some other guy, and then his next fight was going to be for a title. And so his opponent got hurt, injured, whatever, couldn't make it. So they called me, and right away I said, "Yeah, I'll take it." That was a week before the fight. I think it was a Friday, and then the next Friday was the fight. So I flew out and I fought him and I beat him. And when I did, well, I took his spot, and that's why I got the title shot. But yeah, so it just, you got to, with age, yeah, it is just a number. And as long as you take care of yourself, and even, let's put it this way. Here's another thing that people don't know, or they might know some. I've fought so many fights with injuries, being sick, all this stuff. And to me, those were more tests. Well, like I remember one fight, I had 102 fever, and they were telling me, "Why are you fighting? Go home. You're sick." And I said, if I go home, I don't get paid. I need the money. That's why I'm here. I'm all I got to do is make sure this fight doesn't go more than 5 minutes. If it does, I won't have nothing left, because that's how bad I felt. And yeah, the fight, it ended in 3 minutes. I came out with a win. I felt really great. And I was like, good. Hey, well, I know if I'm sick, I can take out a top notch opponent in 3 minutes. So someone on the streets that isn't a professional fighter, isn't as athletic, should be a lot easier. And that's all this was. Other fights, same thing. I had a broken hand. I fought one fight, broke my hand. The following week, I had another fight. I didn't tell the promoter, oh, hey, I can't fight. I broke my hand. Nothing. I showed up and I said, okay, well, one hand's broke. That means I can't use that hand. So I said, that's my test. I got 2 feet and another hand. Let's see how good I do. And that one, I came out with the title. It was a title fight. So I mean, like I said, I said, to me, it's all a testing ground. And every injury, every emotional unsteadiness, whatever I'm going through is a test to see if I can do what I have to do, even though I'm going through all this hell.
Wow, that is incredible. I mean, like I said, massive respect at the beginning. This is one of the main reasons I wanted to talk with you, as well as obviously everything you've achieved in that sense, but the fact that you have that throwback real deal warrior mentality, because obviously the game nowadays, there is a lot of people trying to keep the perfect record and people sort of choosing fights and all this type of thing. And you're just in there with everybody, and you have been doing that for a lot of years. So it's absolutely, you're just a real deal as a fighter. I know you've got things to do with your morning, so we'll just do the last couple of things, and we'll wrap this up. One of the things I'd like to give a mention to basically is the fans themselves, because I know that at the end of the day, you're doing this for you, and you're, as you've explained in great detail, you're testing yourself, pushing the limits. You're on sort of almost an inwards journey in a way of what you can achieve and what you can do. But a lot of people have a lot of respect for everything you've achieved, and rightly so. So I'd like to just give a mention to that, because the sport would be nothing without them. What would you say to people watching this who, come to your fights, stream your fights and watch them live, or just support you in any way whatever form that takes? What would you say to those people out there, anywhere in the world?
You know what? I mean, the biggest thing is that you want to do something, do it. I mean, yeah, a lot of people might tell you, oh, you know what, that's hard. That might not work out. It is that. If you just apply yourself to whatever your goals are, they can be achieved. And with me, you come to watch my fights. I hope, I know I get a lot of messages of people. tell me, I inspire them because of my age, and they're up there in age too, and it's like that's another reason why I enjoy what I do, because I don't want people, doubting themselves, or biggest thing is thinking, man, I'm too old to do that. I started fighting at 32 years old, and that's already close to retirement age for a lot of people. But my thing was, I spent my 20s learning everything I had to learn. So just like a doctor, he goes to school for 7 years, and then I think he spends another 4 years, learning under another doctor before he can go do his thing on his own. So I mean that's 11 years of training, and I did the same thing all through my 20s, just learning, learning, learning. So when I started fighting, it was easy for me. It wasn't that, oh my God, this is hard. I got to do this. I got to learn this. I learned everything I had to learn already. There was other things. I mean, I had to polish up on my way, and that's what I've been doing over the last 18, 19 years, is polishing up my technique. Adding more things to it, taking some things away. So that's all it is. Just you gotta make sure you do what you love, and don't let no one distract you. There'll be a lot of downs, but when you get the ups, that's the benefit. That's what makes it worth it.
Absolutely. Well, that's some powerful advice for life, not just for sports, but for life in general, for whatever dream or goal people are chasing. I appreciate that, by the way, champ, because that's a big part of the reason why I do these, even though we're talking about sports, I always try and include that little bit of inspiration for people as well. Um, Whether they're a fighter or not, whatever they're doing, they can learn from people like yourself who've done great things. So that is amazing. I was just funny enough when you said about 49, I was just doing the math on that. I was thinking, yeah, he must have started late, but that is incredible. I mean, 120 plus fights, 70 plus titles, all, starting at a late age like that to the present day. Absolutely incredible. Well, whatever the future holds for you, I'd like to wish you the best of luck for those future fights. Looking forward to seeing you back there in bare knuckle, or anything else that comes up, maybe MMA one day as well. But I know bare knuckle's what you're enjoying at the moment. And I'd just like to say a big thank you for your time, and a big thank you for being an open book, basically, and sharing quite a bit about your life. Appreciate that, champ. Thank you very much.
Well, like I said before, thank you for having me. You're what gives me, the audience, more and more exposure, and that helps me out. So I appreciate this a lot too.
You're very welcome. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. As obviously you've got more of your day to go than I have, because later over here. So enjoy the rest of your day, and best wishes to you and your family. When I release this, I'll be sure to tag you, or let you know when it's out there as well. And we'll just go from there. But thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, and hope you have as well.
Well, thanks, Andy. Yes, I have enjoyed it a lot too. I said, your questions were not the normal questions. They were a little bit different, which made it more enjoyable for me. So thank you for that part.
Oh, you're welcome. Like you said about, being outside the box and thinking about things a little bit differently. I do try and do that with the questions, and the only one that I knew you'd been asked before was obviously about the heavyweight world title with BYB. Had to ask that, amazing achievement. But with a lot of other things, I was thinking, okay, which bits don't people hear about, and how can we put those in there? So I'm glad that that worked out. So thank you. That's a great compliment. But anyway, yes, like I say, enjoy the rest of your day and take care, champ. Thank you very much.
Right. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.